They kicked him out of the family business and thought they had won until years later. He returned as the one man who could buy the entire company. Before we jump into today's incredible story, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and part of our growing community. If you enjoy powerful comeback stories and inspiring real-life twists, hit the like button and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is in your area. Now get comfortable and prepare for an unforgettable journey about a man who was pushed out of his own family's business only to return years later as the competitor they never saw coming. Ethan Brooks grew up believing he had already found his future. Most children dreamed about becoming athletes, actors, or astronauts. Ethan dreamed about running Brooks Manufacturing. The company wasn't just a business. It was part of his family's identity. His grandfather, Samuel Brooks, had built it from a small machine shop 40 years earlier. What started as a single workshop eventually became one of the largest manufacturing companies in the region. Employees respected the Brooks name. Suppliers trusted it. Customers depended on it, and Ethan loved every part of it. As a child, he spent countless afternoons walking through factory floors beside his grandfather. Samuel knew nearly every employee by name. He stopped frequently to shake hands, ask about families, and listen to concerns. Young Ethan paid attention. His grandfather often repeated the same lesson. Machines build products. People build companies. The word stayed with him. Years later, while other teenagers spent weekends at parties, Ethan volunteered inside the business. He learned inventory management, shipping operations, equipment maintenance, customer service. Every department fascinated him. Employees admired his work ethic. Unlike many family members, he never expected special treatment. He earned respect through effort. After graduating from college with a business degree, Ethan returned home full of ideas. The manufacturing industry was changing rapidly. Technology improved every year. Competitors embraced innovation. Efficiency became increasingly important. Ethan believed Brooks Manufacturing could become stronger than ever. Initially, everything seemed promising. His father welcomed his involvement. Department managers appreciated his energy. Several modernization projects succeeded almost immediately. Costs decreased. Productivity improved. Customers noticed the difference. For a while, Ethan felt certain he was helping secure the company's future. Unfortunately, not everyone shared that perspective. His cousins Ryan and Derek viewed things differently. Both held leadership positions within the company. Both expected inheriting greater control after Ethan's father retired. And both quietly viewed Ethan as a threat. At first, their disagreements seemed minor. Ryan preferred maintaining traditional methods. Derek focused almost entirely on short-term profits. Ethan pushed for innovation, employee development, long-term growth. Different philosophies naturally created conflict. But over time, those conflicts became personal. Every successful project increased tension. Every compliment Ethan received created more resentment. The warning signs appeared gradually. Meetings became uncomfortable. Ideas faced resistance. Projects experienced unexpected delays. Important information occasionally failed to reach him. At first, Ethan ignored it. He assumed everyone ultimately wanted the same thing, the company's success. That assumption proved naive. One afternoon, Ethan presented a proposal involving advanced automation systems. The investment required substantial funding, but research clearly demonstrated long-term benefits. Most department leaders supported the plan. Several executives agreed. Even his father appeared impressed. After the meeting, employees congratulated him. The future looked bright. Later that evening, Ethan accidentally overheard Ryan and Derek talking in a hallway. They didn't realize he was nearby. "What happens if he keeps this up?" Derek asked. Ryan's answer changed everything. "Then eventually he'll control the company." Silence followed. Then Derek spoke again. "We can't let that happen." Ethan stood frozen. For the first time, he realized the problem wasn't his ideas. The problem was him. The following months became increasingly difficult. Ryan and Derek began forming alliances inside the company. Board members received private calls. Executives attended exclusive meetings. Conversations stopped whenever Ethan entered rooms. The atmosphere shifted noticeably. Several loyal employees warned him. Most urged caution. Others advised confronting the situation directly. But Ethan remained optimistic. Perhaps too optimistic. He still believed family would ultimately choose what benefited the company. Then his father announced retirement. Health concerns forced the decision. Years of stress had taken a toll. The news created uncertainty throughout the organization. Employees worried about leadership. Customers watched closely. Competitors paid attention. Ethan expected participating heavily in the transition. Instead, something strange happened. Important discussions occurred without him. Meetings happened unexpectedly. Information became harder to access. The closer retirement approached, the more isolated he felt. One morning, his assistant entered the office looking nervous. "There's a board meeting at 10. Ethan nodded. "I know." She hesitated. "No, I mean a special board meeting." Ethan frowned. "What special board meeting?" Her expression answered the question before words arrived. Nobody told him. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Ethan stood. His stomach tightened. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The boardroom felt unusually cold that morning. Every seat was occupied. Board members avoided eye contact. Ryan sat near the center. Derek beside him. Stacks of paperwork rested neatly on the table. The moment Ethan entered, conversation stopped. Silence filled the room. His heart sank immediately. Because suddenly he understood. The decision had already been made. This meeting wasn't discussion. It was theater. Ryan cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming." Ethan remained standing. "What is this?" Several uncomfortable glances moved around the room. Nobody answered. Finally, Derek slid a folder across the table. "We've completed a leadership review." Ethan didn't touch it. "What leadership review?" Ryan leaned forward. "The board believes a restructuring is necessary." The explanation sounded rehearsed, artificial, empty. Ethan looked around the room. Faces he had known for years refused meeting his eyes. People who once praised his work suddenly remained silent. The betrayal hurt more than he expected. Not because he was losing a position, because nobody possessed the courage to be honest. "What restructuring?" he asked quietly. Ryan finally delivered the truth disguised as business language. "The company is moving in a different direction." Ethan laughed once. A short, humorless laugh. A different direction. Nobody responded. Because everyone understood what those words really meant. "You are being removed. You are no longer wanted. You are the problem." The conversation lasted less than 20 minutes. Years of loyalty erased in minutes. Years of effort dismissed by paperwork. When the meeting ended, Ethan walked slowly back to his office. Employees noticed immediately. News traveled quickly. Questions filled hallways. Concern appeared everywhere. Yet Ethan barely heard any of it. He packed personal belongings into a single cardboard box. Family photographs, awards, notes from employees, memories. A career reduced to one container. As he exited the building, workers watched quietly. Some looked angry. Others looked heartbroken. A few approached and shook his hand. None knew what to say. Neither did Ethan. Outside, sunlight reflected against factory windows. The same building he loved since childhood stood before him. The same building where he imagined spending his future. The same building that had just rejected him. For several minutes, he stood motionless in the parking lot. His entire future suddenly felt uncertain. Fear whispered inside his mind. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe he wasn't capable of succeeding alone. Maybe Brooks Manufacturing was the only opportunity he'd ever have. The doubts felt real. Powerful. Dangerous. Then he remembered something his grandfather once said. Machines build products. People build companies. The company hadn't created Ethan. His character had. His skills had. His determination had. Slowly the fear began fading. Not completely, but enough. Enough to replace doubt with something stronger. Resolve. Ethan looked toward the factory one final time, then made a promise he would never forget. One day he would return. Not seeking revenge. Not seeking sympathy, but seeking proof. Proof that success didn't belong to a family name. It belonged to those willing to earn it. And years later, the people who forced him out would receive a shocking reminder of exactly who they had underestimated. The morning after Ethan left Brooks Manufacturing felt strangely quiet. For the first time since he was a teenager, he had nowhere to go. No office, no meetings, no projects waiting for him, no company to help build, just silence. The silence bothered him more than he expected. For years, his identity had been connected to the family business. Every goal, every plan, every ambition, now all of it was gone. At least that's how it felt. For several weeks, Ethan struggled. He attended interviews, met with investors, explored consulting opportunities. Most conversations ended politely. Some ended quickly. Others ended with advice he never asked for. You should move on. Maybe start something smaller. Competing against Brooks Manufacturing isn't realistic. Why not find another executive position? Everyone seemed convinced his best years were behind him. The problem wasn't a lack of experience. The problem was perception. Brooks Manufacturing dominated the industry. Most people assumed Ethan needed the company. Very few considered the possibility that the company needed Ethan. At first, the rejection frustrated him. Then it motivated him, because every refusal forced him to ask an important question. What if this was actually an opportunity? What if being forced out wasn't the end of his story? What if it was the beginning? The idea changed everything. Instead of searching for another leadership position, Ethan began developing a business plan. A real business plan, not for a side project, not for consulting work, for a company. His company. The idea sounded ridiculous to many people. Starting a manufacturing business required money, equipment, facilities, employees, customers, relationships, risk. And Ethan possessed very little of any of those things. Still, he couldn't ignore the feeling. The same feeling he experienced years earlier while helping modernize Brooks Manufacturing. The feeling that something better was possible. 3 months later, Ethan rented a small warehouse on the edge of town. The building looked unimpressive. The roof needed repairs. The parking lot contained more cracks than pavement. Half the lights didn't work properly. But it was affordable. And for now, affordable mattered. The first day he received the keys, he stood alone inside the empty building. The warehouse echoed with every footstep. Most people would have seen an old building. Ethan saw potential. The next challenge proved even harder. Finding employees. Without workers, there was no company. Without trust, there were no workers. So Ethan started calling people, former colleagues, industry contacts, friends. Anyone willing to listen? Most conversations went well. Few produced results. People liked Ethan, but leaving stable employment for an uncertain startup felt dangerous. Weeks passed. Then something unexpected happened. A former production manager named Linda called him. "Are you serious about this company?" Ethan smiled. "Completely." "Good. Why?" "Because I'd like to join." The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours. By the end, Ethan had hired his first employee. Then another joined, and another. Soon several former Brooks Manufacturing workers followed. Not because Ethan offered larger salaries. He couldn't. Not yet. They joined because they believed in him. Because they trusted him. Because during difficult years he treated them with respect. His grandfather had been right. People build companies, not machines, not buildings. People. The early months were brutal. Ethan worked constantly. 14-hour days became normal. Weekends disappeared. Savings vanished rapidly. Every dollar mattered. Every decision mattered. Several times he questioned everything. One evening he sat alone in the warehouse reviewing financial reports. The numbers looked terrible. Expenses climbed. Revenue lagged. Problems appeared everywhere. For a moment defeat felt possible. Very possible. Then Linda entered carrying coffee. She studied his expression. "Tough day?" Ethan laughed. "Tough month." She sat beside him. "You know what everyone keeps asking?" "What?" "When are we expanding?" Ethan stared. "Expanding?" She nodded. "Customers are happy." He frowned. "That's not enough." "No," she replied. "But it's a start." That conversation stayed with him. Because she was right. Success rarely arrived all at once. It arrived gradually. One satisfied customer, then another, then another. The company slowly gained momentum. Word spread. Clients noticed the difference. Unlike larger competitors, Ethan listened carefully. Problems received attention. Suggestions received action. Employees received respect. Customers appreciated the culture. The business grew. Year 1 ended modestly. Year 2 ended profitably. Year 3 exceeded expectations. For the first time since leaving Brooks Manufacturing, Ethan felt genuine confidence returning. The company continued expanding. New facilities opened. Advanced technology improved efficiency. Talented professionals joined the team. Each year brought new opportunities. And each year widened the gap between Ethan and the man who left the boardroom carrying a cardboard box. Because Ethan was changing. Failure had humbled him. Struggle had strengthened him. Responsibility had matured him. He no longer viewed leadership as authority. He viewed it as service. That perspective transformed everything. Meanwhile, rumors from Brooks Manufacturing became increasingly concerning. Employee turnover increased. Major clients left. Innovation slowed. Internal conflicts grew worse. Ryan and Derek remained focused on quarterly profits, Short-term thinking produced short-term results. For a while, the company survived on reputation alone. But reputation eventually expires, especially when competitors improve. 10 years passed. 10 years of relentless effort. 10 years of rebuilding. 10 years of proving doubters wrong. Then one morning, Ethan arrived at headquarters and noticed unusual excitement throughout the office. Employees gathered around screens. Conversations filled hallways. People looked shocked, excited, disbelieving. What happened? Ethan asked. Linda approached holding a report. Her smile said everything. You're going to want to see this. Ethan accepted the document, then read the headline. It was the industry's annual ranking report, the most respected publication in manufacturing. Every company paid attention to it. Every executive waited for it. Ethan scanned the rankings. His eyes moved downward, then stopped. For several seconds, he couldn't speak, because for the first time in history, his company ranked above Brooks Manufacturing, the company that forced him out, the company everyone believed he could never compete against, the company that once seemed untouchable. Employees erupted into celebration. Cheers echoed throughout the building. Phones rang constantly. Congratulations arrived from customers, investors, and industry leaders. But Ethan remained unusually quiet. Not because he wasn't proud. Because he understood what the ranking truly meant. It wasn't proof of revenge. It was proof of growth. Proof that success built through integrity lasts longer than success. Protected through politics. As the celebration continued around him, Ethan stared at the report one final time. Then noticed something else. Brooks Manufacturing wasn't simply falling behind. It was in serious trouble. And within months, the people who once forced him out would come to him with a request nobody ever expected them to make. The celebration lasted for days. Industry publications praised Ethan's company. Business leaders requested interviews. Investors called constantly. Employees proudly shared the news with family and friends. After 10 years of relentless work, the company had officially become the industry leader. The achievement felt surreal. Yet while everyone around him celebrated, Ethan found himself reflecting on the journey instead. The rankings mattered, but they weren't what made him proud. What mattered was how they got there. The company wasn't built through politics. It wasn't built through favoritism. It wasn't built through family influence. It was built through trust, through hard work, through treating people with respect, through keeping promises. Those values had carried Ethan through every difficult year, and now they had carried him to the top. Several weeks after the rankings were released, troubling news emerged about Brooks Manufacturing. At first, the report seemed manageable. A lost contract, a declining revenue forecast, a restructuring announcement. Then more information surfaced. Debt levels were rising. Major customers were leaving. Investors were becoming nervous. The problems weren't temporary. They were serious. Years of poor decisions had finally caught up with the company. For the first time in its history, Brooks Manufacturing faced an uncertain future. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The same leaders who once called Ethan's ideas unrealistic were now struggling because they ignored innovation. The same people who dismissed long-term planning now faced long-term consequences. Many employees at Ethan's company felt satisfied. Some even felt vindicated. They remembered how Ethan had been treated. They remembered the boardroom betrayal. They remembered the day he walked away carrying a cardboard box. But Ethan never encouraged resentment, because resentment consumes energy better spent building something meaningful. One afternoon, nearly 11 years after leaving Brooks Manufacturing, Ethan received an email. The sender surprised him. Ryan Brooks. For several seconds, Ethan simply stared at the name. They hadn't spoken in years, not once. The message was short, professional, direct. We need to talk. Nothing more. No explanation. No apology. Just 4 words. Ethan sat quietly. Part of him wanted ignoring it. Another part wanted declining immediately. Yet curiosity won. 3 days later, he entered a conference room at a downtown office building. Ryan was already waiting. For a moment, neither spoke. The years had changed both men. Ryan looked older, tired. The confidence he once carried so effortlessly seemed diminished. Life had clearly humbled him. Eventually, Ryan stood. Thank you for coming. Ethan nodded. You said you wanted to talk. Ryan took a deep breath, then sat back down. For the first time in his life, he looked uncertain. That alone felt strange, because Ethan remembered a very different version of Ryan. A man who always seemed convinced he controlled every situation. Now that certainty was gone. Finally, Ryan spoke. "We have a problem." Ethan remained silent. "We're running out of options." The words hung in the air. Neither man needed additional explanation. Everyone in the industry knew Brooks Manufacturing was struggling. The real question was how bad things had become. Ryan slid several documents across the table. Financial statements, debt reports, operational reviews. The numbers looked worse than Ethan expected. Much worse. For nearly an hour, Ryan explained the situation. Failed strategies, lost customers, increasing liabilities, missed opportunities. Every mistake compounded the next. Eventually, the company reached a breaking point. When the explanation ended, silence filled the room. Then Ryan said something Ethan never imagined hearing. "We need your help." The sentence felt almost unreal. Years earlier, Ryan had helped force Ethan out of the company. Now he was asking him to save it. The situation would have seemed impossible once, yet here they were. Ethan studied the documents again, then looked across the table. "What happens if the company fails?" Ryan lowered his eyes. The answer came quietly. "Hundreds of people lose their jobs." That changed everything, because Ethan wasn't thinking about Ryan, or Derek, or the board members who voted against him. He was thinking about employees, the workers, the families, the people who showed up every day simply trying to earn a living. Many still worked there. Some had worked there for decades. They weren't responsible for leadership mistakes. They didn't deserve paying the price. Over the following weeks, negotiations intensified. Lawyers became involved. Investors entered discussions. Financial experts reviewed possibilities. The process was complicated, exhausting, at times frustrating. Yet eventually an agreement emerged. Ethan's company would acquire Brooks Manufacturing. The announcement shocked the entire industry. News outlets covered the story immediately. Social media exploded with reactions. Former employees celebrated. Competitors watched closely. Everyone focused on the same detail. The man who had been forced out was returning as owner. The symbolism seemed unbelievable. On the morning the acquisition became official, Ethan drove toward the factory. The same factory, the same building, the same parking lot. For a moment, memories flooded back. The cardboard box. The humiliation. The uncertainty. The fear. He could still picture it clearly. The younger version of himself standing alone after losing everything he thought mattered. If someone had told him that day he would one day own the company, he would have laughed. Not because it sounded impossible, because life rarely follows predictable paths. Sometimes the worst moment of your life becomes the beginning of your greatest opportunity. Ethan stepped out of his vehicle. Employees gathered near the entrance. Many recognized him immediately. Some had worked alongside him years earlier. Others only knew the stories. Yet the reaction surprised him. People applauded, not because he won, because they believed things would improve. That trust meant more than any business achievement. As Ethan walked through the factory, familiar sights surrounded him. The production lines, the offices, the equipment, everything felt both familiar and different. Years earlier, he dreamed about leading this company. Now he finally had the opportunity. But unlike before, his perspective had changed. Success no longer meant having power. Success meant creating opportunity for others. Success meant protecting jobs, improving lives, building something lasting. Later that afternoon, a reporter asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Do you feel like you've finally gotten revenge?" The room became quiet. Cameras focused on Ethan. Everyone waited. His answer arrived without hesitation. "No." The reporter looked surprised. Ethan smiled. "Revenge would have been letting the company fail." Silence followed. Then he continued. The goal was never proving them wrong. He glanced toward employees standing nearby. The goal was proving what was possible. The room remained silent, listening carefully. Ethan looked around the factory one final time, then spoke the words that perfectly captured his journey. "The best success isn't getting even with people who doubted you." He paused. "It's becoming someone so strong, so capable, and so successful that their doubts no longer matter." The applause started slowly, then grew louder, and as Ethan stood there surrounded by employees, he realized something important. Years earlier, he thought being forced out had destroyed his future. In reality, it had given him one. Because sometimes losing the thing you think you need most is exactly what forces you to discover who you're capable of becoming.